Thanks.
Okay. Lauren, it's all right. Lauren.
Those are real important things or things you shouldn't say?
I like to think everything that comes out of my mouth. My wife would probably agree with that. I think we're... Good morning, everybody. Today I stand here with the members of the Democratic Legislative minority. Obviously, we are here to discuss the Nassau County Correction Center as well as the responsibilities of Sheriff Sposato. The sheriff's ultimate criteria for his job is to make sure that our facility is safe, secure, and we protect taxpayers. And obviously, as we look at the board, we do not take what we are calling upon today lightly. But if you look at the aspects of what the sheriff is responsible for, making sure our facility is safe, secure, and it protects taxpayers, he has failed grossly. In every category, we deem it as an F. And also, looking at the headlines in 2016 alone, and we could have went back even further, but looking at the headlines alone, in 2016, multiple occasions, the sheriff has failed. That is why, after looking at this process thoroughly now for quite some time and looking at the year of 2016, we are demanding and calling on Sheriff Sposato to resign. The bottom line is very simple. As you look at each of the headlines, it speaks to a record of mismanagement, a pattern where there has not been the proper oversight, the legislature, the presiding officer not calling hearings. This has led to each of these areas making that facility for inmates and correction officers alike completely unsafe. As we look at the safety matter, just in the last year, we have seen 6 inmates that have lost their lives because of the lack of care that we have seen with armor. Also, we have seen in that time frame, the Attorney General announced a very strong settlement that talks about the resolve, that lawsuit, that settlement being resolved, and also talks about there are major contract obligations that were spelled out in our agreement with the county that armor has been neglecting. And that New York State and armor would pay $350,000. We have seen countless correction officers be hurt in the prison. Just recently, there was a riot and a broken elevator also that has been left unusable for months. Newsday has documented the security issues in regards to an electric fence not working properly for months. But then obviously, as we all shared, just in the last month, we've seen the situation where contraband was being smuggled into the jail and how that was dealt with and mishandled, where the district attorney did not know about it. The district attorney, as you will see on our board, has also come out and said that the process has been mishandled internally. This all stems to the fact that Sheriff Sposato cannot do the job of managing this facility as well as ensuring that taxpayers are protected. And that is why it's instrumental that he leave and resign from the county. Also, looking to the correction report that came out from the state, identified gross negligence on behalf of Armor Healthcare, who provides the medical care for the county and the jail. That being said, the sheriff, on more than one occasion, defended Armor, even after the Attorney General came out with their report, even after the state corrections came out with their report. He continued to support Armor, which to us does not give us the vote of confidence, as well as for the taxpayers, to ensure that we will be able to have the jail run in a functional manner that keeps it safe. Again, we are renewing our call on the presiding officer, who is the only person that has the ability to call hearings. We have not seen one hearing, not one hearing, while all of this happens. Inmates and families are devastated by these deaths. Correction officers are continue to risk their lives in an unsecure facility, and taxpayer money is going out the window. We've seen it just recently, this legislature voted on, though it didn't involve the correction center, but it involved the sheriff as well as the county executive. The county just paid out upwards of close to $1 million in a settlement that names the sheriff as well as the county executive in being involved in sexual harassment situation that involved the jail at the sheriff's department. Again, we don't know the seriousness of these allegations because the presiding officer chose not to call a hearing. But $800 to $1 million upwards of money continues to hemorrhage out of the county. And again, these lawsuits, though we know how serious it is to make sure that that facility is secure, again, we've seen deaths at the jail that are connected to Armor, the medical care provider, and at the same time, we have not seen any movement to bring in a quality medical care provider while at the same time ensure that we would have the practices at the healthcare facility continue to be addressed. These are all gross negligences. And again, we say this, we did not take this lightly. This caucus took the time with our staff, we researched these items, we do not take calling for anyone's position lightly. But there comes a time, and we are at that time, where the sheriff must go. And the Nassau County taxpayers, the correction officers, the inmates at that facility can no longer afford Sheriff Sposato in that role as sheriff anymore. And we are demanding that the county executive call for his resignation and he be removed from the jail. That being said, I would be willing to hand the floor over to who would seal a Biden.
Good morning. As Legislator Kavan Abraham has detailed, there has been gross mismanagement at the jail that we believe led, unfortunately, to the deaths of inmates and also, puts our officers and personnel at the jail at risk. I would also argue that his mismanagement failed the jail in another way. He did not fill positions that were either charter mandated or contractually mandated. There was a charter mandate that we have a commissioner of corrections, and there was a contractual mandate that we have a health care contract administrator, someone to look over how Armor delivered health care to our inmates. The commissioner of correction, his job was directly related to the custody and care of our inmates. And so we believe that those failings in itself shows that the sheriff has not stepped up and provided the proper management at the jail. In addition, it's come to my attention that the sheriff is initiating facility-wide or housing area lockdowns to perform routine services like hospital transports. In addition, he utilizes that process to offset staffing levels. And all of this is a cost-saving measure that I argue is putting our inmates and our personnel at risk. When he locks down the facility like that, it doesn't allow for our inmates to receive the library services, academic instruction, or even religious services. Again, this creates a heightened level of stress, and I believe it puts an undue threat of safety and security at the facility for both inmates and personnel. In addition, it's come to my attention that they are currently housing protective custody adult offenders with minor general population inmates. And that is grossly negligent. We are putting inmates, young inmates, who in fact, in many cases, aren't even convicted of a crime in harm's way, because I've also learned that some of those adult members of the facility are actual sexual predators or have been asserted that they have actually committed rape. So I would allege that we're putting inmates at risk, and I will tell you personally, I visited the jail. and I visit the jail on multiple occasions. And the conditions to which the inmates are housed and the condition to which employees are required to work are totally unsuitable. The venting in the area was filled with debris and dirt. There were leaks throughout that facility. The roof, I would argue, is compromised. And I would say that not even from the perspective of facility management, that the sheriff is hitting the mark. So unfortunately, we've come to a time when it is our call that he step down and that we have a suitable sheriff put in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Next, I'll have Legislator Curran.
Thank you. So Minority Leader Abrahams and Legislator Bino have hit upon many, many issues, and I think you could have a press conference, maybe 5, on the mismanagement of the jail. I'm just going to hit on one slice that's something that I've been talking to the administration, to my fellow legislators about for the better part of a year, and that is how Armor was handled. As part of Armor's contract, they were supposed to provide performance measures consistently before they're paid. That did not happen for 5 years. We did not get the performance measures. And when we finally asked for them and got them, I wrote a letter, I asked for them, got them. They were very inconsistent and they were shoddy. They didn't match each other. And I found that very, very troubling that for 5 years we were paying this company based on performance measures that we weren't getting. And then when we finally got them and got them late, they were embarrassing. And this to me alone just crystallizes everything else that's wrong with the jail and that my fellow legislators have elaborated on. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Legislator Bridget.
You know, the human factor is, of course, the most important with this issue. We are responsible for these residents while they're under our care. As Laura mentioned, we did get some of the statistics. People that came in with chronic conditions, they hope to interview and meet with them within 14 days, and I forget the number, but it was very low. So we're not even, that's someone with diabetes and not even being consulted about their medication for 2 weeks. The bottom line also is, which is not as important in a sense, the human factor is most important, but this is an economic issue. Nassau County residents are responsible for any neglect. We are supposedly, held indemnified, but the bottom line is the sheriff is working for Nassau County. And for us to come out here, we don't do this very often, but for us to ring the bell and say, we're really aware of this problem and we want to stop it before it blows up is a really big step for us, because as you know, we really don't do that often. We don't want to be standing there when another thing happens, if it should be another death or another issue, and have this on our conscience. We're here to tell you there's a real problem, and we've seen other problems, and we want to stop this before anything else happens. So I also stand with our minority leader and our other legislators to call for his resignation right now.
Thank you, Julie. Legislator Berman.
Sure. I believe in these times Nassau County has been trying to save money, and we all want to see any cost-saving measures take place, but unfortunately the jail is not the proper place, and 6 deaths in 2016 is too much. Any deaths, too much. But I think in Sheriff Sposato's way of managing, he believes he's keeping costs down, and this is an incorrect method of government, using cost savings at jail. So I think the county has to take a hard look at the people they're choosing to run different departments, facilities, and in this case, Sheriff Sposato must resign. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Good morning, everyone. Carrie Salage. Despite the sheriff not having professional training as a law enforcement officer and only having professional training of a cook, I gave the sheriff a benefit of the doubt. And unfortunately, he has failed me, he has failed us all, and he has failed Nassau County. As you can see, we have given him 3 grades in the area of safety, security, and taxpayer protection. And as much as I care about the inmates, and of course I care more about the correctional officers who are working there, I care also about the taxpayers of Nassau County. And we frankly cannot afford this sheriff anymore. In terms of cost to human life, in terms of cost to the taxpayer, lawsuit after lawsuit, we cannot afford this man. I do not know why our county executive appointed a cook as our sheriff. And as a result, we're paying the cost. Thank you very much.
Legislator Ronnie Drucker, it's always unfortunate when someone in a position of leadership is asked to resign, but the incidents that have come out of the jail over the past couple of years are absolutely astounding. And unfortunately, while at the helm of this facility, all of this malfeasance and misfeasance has occurred, you need to ask the leader, the person at the helm, to step aside. It is too important, and it's costing taxpayers in this county millions and millions of dollars, which we can ill afford. To have to now, in the future, pay out judgments for all the mishaps, it's irresponsible, and we can't afford it anymore. And he's in a position of leadership. Unfortunately, he has to take the hit. He's the one in charge. It's at his helm. His leadership has failed, and it's time to move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I take questions, just to summarize again, thank the members of the caucus for standing with us today. I think it's obvious. As I said before, we just took a look at 2016. But for us, it's very clear. If we went back even further, we probably could have found more. We cannot have a 2017 that even looks remotely close to what 2016 looked like in terms of the deaths at the jail, in regards to the level of making the area unsafe to our correction officers, the cost to our taxpayers. We cannot afford the sheriff anymore. And again, we are demanding from the county executive and calling for Sheriff Sposato to resign from his post so that we can continue to move forward over at the correction center as well as at the sheriff's department. That being said, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Ron, do you know if he has civil service protection for his prior job? Could he go back to being a county employee, or did he give that up? Do we know?
I would envision that he does have some type of level of civil service protection. As Legislator Lodge pointed out, he was in a civil service position prior to being the sheriff. So I would assume, like most positions in this county, even though he has been appointed to the role of sheriff, he can go back into his civil service position.
Do you, you mentioned gross negligence. I wonder the kind of behavior we're speaking of and his leadership or lack of leadership is maybe what we're talking about. Is there any hint or chance of any kind of possibility of criminal behavior in any way here? Are we looking at possibilities there?
Well, I would leave that to the district attorney to be able to investigate those matters. Obviously, she is looking to a matter in regards to how the issue with the contraband and the smuggling has taken place. Obviously, the Attorney General has looked into the matter in regards to the medical provider. To me, it's astonishing that the sheriff would continue to support the medical provider even after the Attorney General and the Department of Corrections in New York State come out and highlight gross negligence on behalf that has been provided to the inmates on behalf of the county. So to me, it's astonishing that we're even at the point where we have a sheriff that's defending them. And quite frankly, as we get ready to move forward, hopefully with a new provider, which is a whole nother issue, but as we continue to look towards a new provider, it's troubling that this sheriff will have some role in selecting that new provider when he did a horrendous job at selecting and working with the current provider.
Yvonne, if you have this access to this information, I'm sure the county executive does as well. Why do you believe that he has not stepped up like you guys are stepping up?
Keith, I couldn't speak for the county executive. I couldn't tell you half the things on why he does it or doesn't do it. I will tell you this, from our standpoint, I don't understand what he believes the sheriff has done well. We looked hard. We tried to find things that maybe some success stories with the sheriff, but in 2016, I mean, there's over a dozen headlines here. Not one of them is positive. Not one of them is positive to any of those aspects that we talked about in terms of safety, security, or taxpayer protection. He is failing Nassau County, and he is making the facility less secure.
How much of this, what we're talking about here today, do you fault the county executive?
Well, we fault the county executive because there's no action. There's complete inaction. From the time we've written, I would say, at least a half a dozen, if not more, letters requesting to, yes, we wrote to Just recently, we wrote to the county executive on January 10th. We wrote to him on November 4th, 2016. We wrote to the controller asking for them to look into the armor, which I will credit the controller of at least looking into the matter on September 1. I mean, these letters go back for the entire 2016, where we have called on the county executive, we have called on the Commissioner of Corrections, which was appointed by the county executive, Mr. Charles Campisi, just recently, over and over again, the lack of action. And we just can't afford it anymore. We can't afford it from a taxpayer standpoint, but we can't afford it from a safety standpoint for the correction officers as well as the inmates that are at that jail.
Is he being protected? Is the sheriff being protected by anybody?
By whom? What do
You mean by the county executive?
Politically connected.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, from our standpoint, I just feel, well, we have not hidden our displeasure with how many things are run in this county. The lack of proper management. This is just one more thing that highlights the fact that this county is not run properly. That obviously now it's costing people their lives. It's making the facility less secure, and it's costing taxpayers money. And to me, those are the three most important areas in running any facility. And the sheriff is not up for it. And if the county executive is not ready to call for his resignation, we are demanding from the presiding officer that she provide some level of oversight so we can start moving forward with some hearings, so at least we can have a public discourse about this process.
We're going to complete this because there's top cop out of respect to our officers. So we'll take individually any questions afterwards.
I mean, one more thing also, I mean, you asked a question in regards to protection. I think also it's conceivable to believe that the county executive, as you know, is with his personal situation in regards to what he's being charged with. As I said before, and I always say, though everybody is innocent to proven guilty, it could be a level of distraction where maybe his attention is not focused on all this that's going on in 2016. I mean, anyone would agree, if all this happened at one facility, you would have to give some level of scrutiny to determine whether or not we are moving in the right direction. And this doesn't seem like the right direction at all.
So you're suggesting that Mangano is distracted by his indictment and therefore not paying attention to issues at the jail?
I'm coming to that as a conclusion, as a possibility, when we look at headline after headline, and this is just 2016, when we're looking at incident after incident and letters that have been written and there's no response and there's no action being taken. So we are coming to that conclusion that that is very possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.